Ayesha was a mechanical technician living in a small town. From the very beginning, her family believed that true success only came from big degrees, office jobs, and corporate titles. Hands-on work was never considered respectable in their eyes. Despite this mindset, Ayesha was skilled, dedicated, and deeply passionate about her work. But in her home, her efforts were never appreciated. Instead, she was often reminded that she was just a technician, as if her profession made her less valuable than others. After the death of her father, everything changed for her. The responsibility of the household fell on her shoulders. She stepped up without hesitation, sacrificing her comfort and dreams for her family. But instead of gratitude, she received criticism. Every decision she made was questioned. Every effort she put in was overlooked. Slowly, the weight of expectations turned into emotional isolation. The pain reached its peak during a family gathering. Ayesha arrived quietly, expecting at least a moment of respect or acknowledgement. Instead, she was ignored. Conversations shifted away from her presence. Some relatives even made subtle remarks about her profession, mocking manual workers as if they were less important. That moment broke something inside her. She realized she had given everything, her time, her energy, her respect, to people who never saw her worth. For them, she would always be less, no matter how much she achieved or sacrificed. That night, Ayesha made a silent decision. She would no longer live in a place where her value was defined by ignorance. Without dramatic goodbyes or emotional explanations, she left the town behind. Ayesha moved to a new city where no one knew her past or judged her identity. There, she started again from zero. Her technical skills, once dismissed, became her greatest strength. She worked hard, learned continuously, and refused to be limited by anyone's expectations. Slowly, she built something of her own, a mechanical engineering consultancy. At first, it was small, but her reputation grew quickly because of her precision, intelligence, and problem-solving ability. Clients began to trust her. Projects increased. Her name started to carry weight in professional circles. The same hands that were once mocked were now respected for building solutions that others couldn't even imagine. Ayesha had transformed her pain into power. Years passed. The same family members who once ignored and disrespected her began to hear her name in conversations, this time with admiration, not judgment. Her success had reached them. One by one, they came back into her life, not out of love, but out of need. They needed her connections, her guidance, and her reputation to protect their own standing. But Ayesha was no longer the same person they had dismissed. She listened calmly, without anger, without revenge, just clarity. She understood something important now. Respect forced by success is not the same as respect given from the heart. She chose dignity over validation. And in that moment, she fully understood the truth she had learned through pain. Respect is not demanded. It is earned. And once lost, it is rarely the same again. The room was quiet, but Ayesha's mind was louder than ever. She sat across from the same relatives who once made her feel invisible. The same people who had dismissed her existence now waited for her approval, her help, her influence. But something inside her had changed permanently. She no longer felt small. She no longer felt the need to prove anything. Years of struggle had taught her a truth that no apology could erase. People only value you when they need you, but not everyone deserves access to the version of you that survived pain. One of her cousins finally broke the silence. "Ayesha, we are really proud of you. You've done so well for yourself." The words sounded polite, rehearsed, almost forced. She smiled slightly, not warmly, not coldly, just neutrally. "Thank you," she replied, but inside she remembered a different version of this same room. A younger Ayesha, standing quietly in the corner, ignored during conversations, laughed at for choosing a technical path instead of a respectable office job. That girl was gone now. That night, after the meeting ended, Ayesha didn't feel happiness. She felt reflection. Success had given her comfort, recognition, financial freedom, but it had also brought something unexpected, emotional distance from her past. She stood near the window of her apartment in the new city, looking at the lights below. Her consultancy firm was now well established. Engineers worked under her leadership. Clients from different cities respected her expertise. Yet none of it erased the memory of how her journey began, with rejection from the people who were supposed to protect her confidence. She whispered to herself, "Why does success feel so lonely sometimes?" It wasn't sadness, it was understanding. Because she realized something important. When you grow beyond your environment, you often outgrow the emotional world you came from to. A few days later, her phone rang. It was her mother. Ayesha hesitated before answering. Their relationship had always been complicated, respect mixed with emotional distance, love mixed with judgment. She picked up. "Ayesha Beta," her mother's voice was soft, almost tired. "Yes," Ayesha replied calmly. There was a pause. I heard about your company. People are talking about you everywhere." Ayesha didn't respond immediately. Her mother continued, "Your cousin's business is struggling. They asked if you could guide them." There it was. The reason behind the call, not pride, not reconciliation, need. Ayesha closed her eyes for a moment. This was the cycle repeating itself again. Years ago, she was unwanted because she was just a technician. Now she was needed because she was successful. But the emotional gap between those two versions of her life was massive. "I'll think about it," she said finally, and ended the call. That night, Ayesha couldn't sleep. Her mind kept replaying two versions of herself. The girl who was ignored at family gatherings, the woman whose approval they now sought. Both were real. Both were her. But only one had been respected. She asked herself a difficult question. Am I supposed to help people who never stood for me when I needed them? The answer wasn't simple. Because anger still existed, but so did humanity. She wasn't heartless. She was just aware now, and awareness makes decisions more complicated than pain ever did. Weeks later, Ayesha returned to her hometown, not because she was called, not because she needed closure, but because something inside her told her she needed to see where it all began. The streets looked smaller than she remembered. The workshop where she once worked was still there. Rusted tools, old machines, the smell of oil and metal, familiar, grounding. She walked inside quietly. The owner, an old man now, recognized her instantly. "Ayesha, is that really you?" She smiled. "Yes." He shook his head in disbelief. "I always knew you were different. You had patience, focus, not like the others." For the first time in a long time, she felt seen without condition. No expectation, no agenda, just recognition. Standing in that old workshop, Ayesha realized something profound. Her journey was never just about success. It was about identity. She didn't become successful because people doubted her. She became successful because she refused to let their doubt define her limits. But now she understood another truth. Success does not erase pain. It only teaches you how to carry it differently. Back in the city, Ayesha made a decision. She agreed to guide her cousin's struggling business, but not in the way they expected. She didn't offer financial rescue. She didn't offer shortcuts. She offered structure, discipline, and accountability. The same things she had built her own life with. At first, they resisted. They wanted easy solutions, but Ayesha didn't bend. "If you want real success," she said firmly, "you have to respect the process, not the outcome." Slowly, they began to understand. And for the first time, they started respecting her not just for what she had achieved, but for how she thought. Months passed. Her consultancy expanded internationally. Her name became associated with precision, innovation, and discipline. But something had changed internally. She was no longer trying to prove anything, no longer seeking validation, no longer waiting for apologies. She had stepped into a space where her value was no longer dependent on others' perception. One evening, she stood again by her window. But this time, she wasn't thinking about the past. She wasn't replaying old wounds. She was simply present. And for the first time in her life, she felt something quietly powerful: peace.